Hey everyone, so today we're going to talk a little bit about chromatic neutrals. So chromatic neutrals are mixing colors without using white, black, or gray. Okay, so we're going to only use color to be able to mix them. And here we can see a chart that a student had done. And for the most part, it's pretty good. Now there's some things I'm going to mention here that I think are a little problematic. So let me just grab my pointer tool here, and you can see that like this orange and this orange are very similar. There's a big jump between this orange and this orange. This yellow is very similar to this yellow. So really this yellow probably somewhere in between should be here, and so on. And what we're doing in order to make this is we're mixing this yellow, primary yellow, with this red. Now you'll also notice that the student didn't paint the edges, and there we can start to see kind of a sparkle, and it sort of takes away from how we see the color, right? There's some issues here too, like these browns in the middle are very similar. Yeah, I don't even know over here like what's going on. So definitely some problems with the way this is painted. So let's take a look at what we're going to be doing. So this is your chart. It's in Blackboard under weeks 1 through 4 under your chips. And this is your mixing chart. So here it tells you what you're going to be doing and how it's going to look. So we're going to start off with color A, and that's going to be any primary color. And then we're going to mix it. We're going to mix it with color B. That's any other primary color. And we're going to start by making the visual halfway mark. So that's by mixing A and B. Now, depending on what primary color you pick, like for example, let's say you pick blue, and then you're going to have this color be yellow. You would start with the yellow, the lighter color, and mix the blue in it to try to find a visual, not a physical. So it's not 50-50 with the paint. It's a visual halfway mark, right? So this is not going to be a chromatic neutral. This is going to turn into a secondary color, right? So it's very important. Like if you did yellow and blue, you're going to end up with a green, correct? And that's a secondary. And what you're going to try to do is then once you've mixed this and you've painted these, you're going to try to go backwards from here all the way over to the blue. And then you're going to go forwards from here all the way over to the other primary color. Then you're going to bring this primary color down. So it's going to be the same color. So you're going to take this color B and you're going to make another chip. And then over here, you're going to do a complement of this secondary color. So that's going to be straight across on the color wheel. So it's very important for you to be able to look at your color wheel and figure out what is the complement of my primary that I chose. So we said this one's going to be yellow, right? So let's just for a second, let's just go online and let's look up color wheel. And you have your color wheel too, but let's just look up color wheel. So we'll go to this one, and there we can see if we go directly across, let me do an image search. So if we go directly across from the yellow, directly across, that would be violet, right? So that gives us the complement of yellow would be violet. So that means that when we go back here to our chart, that this color here would be violet. And now we're going to make a chromatic neutral by mixing yellow with violet. Now we know violet's a lot darker, so that means we're going to start with our yellow and we're going to have it primarily yellow, and then we're going to put in a little bit of our violet. We're going to bring color C down to make this so that we know that's a secondary color, because usually a complement of a primary is always a secondary. So we're going to bring that C color down, and then we're going to go any other secondary color. So let's go back to our color wheel. So we can see here that if we zoom in to this, maybe, I don't think we can. Let me see if I can. There we go. So we know that here's violet, here's blue, here's yellow, here's red, right? So we know that these are tertiary. That's like when you mix two primaries, it's double the amount of primary and a secondary. So we have 2/3 blue and then 1/3 violet equals blue violet. So that's called a tertiary. So we know that if this is a secondary, that means that green is a secondary, orange is a secondary, right? So we have orange, green, and violet. So if we go back here to our chart, it says you're going to bring C down, the complement, which is violet at this point, and we're going to mix it with any other secondary. So that means we have a choice of green or orange. And that will also be a neutralized color, which is just another way of saying chromatic neutral. Okay, so that's how that would work. And we're going to do the halfway mixture just like we've been doing, and then we're going to bring it down here. And we're going to take this color D, because this is now color D. So this isn't a different secondary. This isn't a different secondary. This is this color. So if this secondary, see it says complement of B. So B was yellow, complement was violet. This is a secondary color, and it will be color C now. So we bring color C down, and then we have any other secondary color D. Now we're going to bring D down, and we're going to do a split complement. Oh, so let's say we decided that we're going to do violet and orange. So let's say this is orange. So we brought orange down. What's the split complement of orange? So if we bring orange down and we go directly across the color wheel in a straight line, what do we have? We have blue. So that means that the split complement is either blue-green or blue-violet. That's what you're going to pick. Let's say you used green as your other secondary. Then you'd go directly across, and it would be red-violet or red-orange. Those would be the colors you would mix. So let's go back. So now we have color D, that's secondary, and we're going to do a split complement. So you're going to pick whatever one it is. It's going to be a tertiary, and that will also create a chromatic neutral in the middle. Now we're going to bring this color E back down here. So it's going to be the same color. It should be identical to this. So these two chips are the same. And now you can add any other color. So you can pick any other color that's 100% saturated color. And then you're going to make the visual halfway point, and then you're going to bring that color down. And now, for the very last color G, you're going to take a gray that does not match the value of the color F. So if this ended up being very dark, you would have a very light gray. If this is very light, you would have a dark gray. Okay? So whatever you end up mixing, that means this whole row is going to be tones. So, if you don't understand, watch it again. But let's go to the actual assignment and the color and media dynamics. So the physical half mixture of a parent color to an additive color will not give you the middle chip. The darker pigments will mask more than the lighter ones if you do a 50 mixture. So it will always be darker than what you want. So what does that mean? That means you have to not do a physical mixture. It has to be a visual mixture. It's easier to darken a color than to lighten a color. Start with the lighter of the two parents and gradually, very small steps, add the darker color. This will also save you paint. At the very end, you will need to add the lighter color to the darker color to find subtle dark chips. So that's like where you're going to, when you get to the end and you're getting to the very last bits where you're going to the darker color in your gradient, you're probably going to just keep adding lighter color at that point. It will take more than 9 chips to get to, the right 9 chips of a gradation. So that means you need to cut more than what's on our sheet. So if we go back to our sheet, we can see that you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rows, and you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 across. So let's get out our calculator. Let's see if I have my calculator somewhere. And let's multiply. I mean, you all probably can do this in your head, but I'm going to do it here in front of you. Times 6 equals 54 chips. You are going to need more than that. So I would say you probably want to do at least 2 or 3 extra chips per row in case you make mistakes. So when you cut these chips out, you're going to need that they're going to be 1 inch by 1 inch. And so let's say if it's 9 across, let's say we do 11. So let's clear and go 11 times 6 equals 66 chips. So that's probably what you're going to need, somewhere in that range. Okay. So 9 chips is not going to be enough. After the first couple, you'll get better at it, and then it'll go faster. Your paint dries differently than it appears when it's wet, so always make note of that. Wait till it's dry before you make any other decisions. Lighting is crucial, so always, you probably want to work in the color lab because you get the same lighting every single time. Different brands have different properties, so if you run out of a color and you end up having to paint more on the same area, make sure you use only that color for your mixture. So like if you're gonna say, for example, you ran out of yellow and there's some yellow in the cabinet, but it's a different brand, then use that yellow throughout. Don't mix it up because it'll look different. The paints you are using are water soluble. And they're gouache paints. We are not going to be using the acrylics in this process. Gouache paints have a matte, opaque finish, as you have seen, and they also have a glycerin base. Acrylics have a different opacity, and they have a plastic base. Try for an even opaque coverage. You don't want to have the board or paper showing through. That means it's like you've added white. So you don't want that. You want it to look like a paint chip that you would get at the hardware store when you buy paint. That's what you're looking for. So try an even, let me just move this out of the way. Try for an even opaque coverage. Usually a wet brush is enough. Sometimes you'll have to add a little water. The paint should have a consistency of a heavy cream as you use it. A little, not like heavy cream like toothpaste, heavy cream like creamer for your coffee, right? So in between that. Watch where you store your paints. Don't let them get cold. Don't leave them in the car. They will be ruined. Check for the principle of reflected edges. We talked about that right in the beginning. Any particular chip, the edge next to it, when it's right next to each other, it'll appear lighter if there's a white edge there. So you don't want those white edges. You want to paint your edges. Okay. Oops, I don't want to go that far. The only way that this will really work, and you're going to see some of the examples I'm showing you. I have them separated by black. When you lay your chips out on your board, they're going to be right next to each other. So I want them to be right next to each other as if they are creating a visual gradient, like it's going light to dark or whatever the color changes might be. So the only way you can really check this method and to see that the chips are right is that you put them right next to each other, just like we have the little diagram there. My suggestion again is that you paint the edges of the chips so all surfaces are covered. Cover your desk before doing this so it's easier to clean up at the end of class. To avoid scratching, and cover the chips and avoid touching the tops that have been painted. A nice thing to do is to take some Scotch tape or some painter's tape, which I have in the room, and lay it out and then actually just stick your chips right on it. And then that way you can trim the edges and put it right in your paper envelope that you made. And then that way they'll stay nice and clean. Like they won't, you'll have them all in a row. So that's a really good way to store them until you're going to glue them down. So again, like I say here, keep them in order by lining them up on a piece of masking tape, sticky side up and the unpainted side down. Okay, so let's take a look at some of these. So here we have some more. Again, I don't have them right next to each other. This is not the way I want you to mount them. I want you to mount them right next to each other. So here we can see some problems. This is showing a lot of paint strokes. Unlike this is really nice and solid. This one's really pretty nice and solid. This one's nice and solid. This one is not. Look at the places where there's big jumps in the color like this, right? That's not what you want. You really want there not to be big jumps in the color. Now, this person used 2 different blues instead of, this should have not been a blue. This should have been a totally different color. it says any color, but you've already used a blue, so don't use another blue. If you're going to use another blue, use a, blue violet or some other, type of blue, not just a straight blue. Here's another one. This one's actually painted fairly nicely. Again, we can see some of our edges here, right? And again, it takes away from the color. I think these are a little too close. I think this one and this one could have been flipped. You can see that some of these are not 1 inch by 1 inch. Like, you can see right away that they're not the right size. So the best way to cut these is to use the self-healing and to like draw out your inches on the back side of your paper, and then cut them with an X-Acto knife and a metal ruler. You can find the metal rulers in the drawing room in 101. Here's another one, pretty nice. These are pretty close though, I mean, you can really see, like, we could have definitely had more oranges down in here. This is a big jump here and not really working. At least most of the edges are covered in this one. I'm not sure what's happening here. I think they got tired, or they ran out of what the row was, and there's some more. So that gives you a pretty good idea of kind of where we're going. Again, you can find this in Blackboard. So let's take a look. Let me get to Blackboard. Let me go to content. And if we go into content, let me go back. Maybe. Okay, so if we go into color wheels and chip templates, we click on this. Here's our color chip templates right there. So you can, and I really suggest that you print this out. A lot of people like to leave it on their phone, but then, yeah, I think it's much better if you print it out and you lay it out like right on here, and you kind of see where you're going. And it should be mounted exactly like it shows on here. One chip right next to the other. Again, using tape, you can just make that row and then, label it like primary on the back, primary A and B, right on the back of the tape. All right. I hope that helps everyone. I hope it gives you a good explanation as to how to make your chromatic chip neutral chip chart. And yay. Can't wait to see them.